My time as a stay-at-home mom is finished,
Yeah.
but we are still churning out episodes.
Welcome back to the working world.
Yeah. I'm Erin,
I'm Tom.
and this is Baby's First Watch List, the podcast that is miraculously still being recorded, even though it's dark outside. And I've fallen asleep at 8 p.m. every day this week.
Which is in 8 minutes.
Yeah, so who knows? Also, my auntie just texted me that there's a dunking the groom thing at the wedding she's
Let's
at.
go.
That's kind of awesome.
We got to bring that back. Now that I've already had a wedding, we got to bring it back.
So it's our first September episode, and September is always
Welcome to fall, baby.
It's always an interesting
It
month.
was like 90 degrees this week in New Jersey.
School starts, football's back. I got the best tight end in the business right now on my fantasy team. Shout out to TJ Hawkinson, my guy. He's gonna get me all the points. So anyway, we're covering.
Watch like something awful happen to him between now and Tuesday.
No, we are covering the Royal Tenenbaums, the winner of the Wes Anderson poll.
Yes.
Was it close?
You guys, it was won by 1 or 2 votes over the Grand Budapest Hotel. Not so much love for Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I, candidly was kind of hoping would win.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we watched this one. I thought it was great.
I've already seen this one, but I liked it a lot more this time. So I'm glad that
I remember you
watched
saying
it.
that you weren't a big fan of it when we had previously talked about it.
I liked it a lot more. I watched it when we were at in Plainsboro in our old condo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't there for
You
whatever
weren't
reason.
there for whatever reason. So the Royal Tenenbaums was director Wesley Anderson's third film after Bottle Rocket and Rushmore. I've seen Rushmore. I have not seen Bottle Rocket.
You've seen a lot of Wes Anderson stuff.
Yeah, I've seen more than you.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson is known for his distinctive style. I guess it's kind of just like, it's hard to describe it. It's eccentric.
It's been memed a little bit.
I talk about that.
Okay.
I talk about that. Don't worry.
You know when you're watching a Wes Anderson movie.
That's it. It's very visually distinctive. I don't know.
It's very like twee.
Yes, twee. Yes, it is, and it works sometimes really well, and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it's tongue in cheek, and it's meant not to be, and like vice versa. It's got a weird. All of them have weird tones. The 3 that I've seen, all have weird tones.
And he's kind of seen as a modern day auteur.
Yeah.
Which I agree with.
Sure.
He writes his stuff. He has a certain point of view. Yeah. And the people that love him. Like, he has stans.
Yeah. And honestly, I used to be of the mind that people with stans like that make like the stans turn me off of watching that person or listening to them or whatever. And that is the case a little bit here with him. But the fact that there are so many ardent defenders make me... In case you can't tell, I like Grand Budapest Hotel, but I didn't like Moonrise Kingdom. So I came into this one being like, I don't really know. But the fact that he has so many fans that are like vigorous fans of his sort of makes me want to watch more just to see if I get it. And with this one, I did get it. I understand it with Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, totally. So he's been nominated for 7 Academy Awards. He has not won yet. 2 for best.
Never even for like I guess he wouldn't be nominated for production design or costume design or anything.
Yeah. So he's been nominated twice for animated feature for Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. He's been nominated for Best Picture for Grand Budapest Hotel, Best Director for that, and then he's got a couple screenplay noms.
This one was up for screenplay.
He co-wrote The Royal Tenenbaums with actor Owen Wilson, who who was his college roommate at UT Austin.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. And like Bottle Rocket, like a lot of his early stuff was like alongside of Owen Wilson. And
Wes Anderson's clearly a person that makes connections with people.
Yeah.
Because he works with the same actors all the time.
And Luke Wilson was also in Bottle Rocket too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Cinematographer. Oh, and randomly James Caan was in his first movie.
Really?
Imagine you get James Caan for your first movie. Like, that's awesome. So the cinematographer, and there's going to be some names here that I'm like just going to butcher, I think. But Robert Yalman, I think he has done 9 collaborations with Wes Anderson. This is what I kind of expect, that like he works with the same people like behind the scenes too, but that's not always the case, it turns out.
Yeah.
Robert Yalman, though, his cinematographer, yes, he's Oscar nominated for Grand Budapest Hotel. And the cinematographer, my guy Robert, also frequently works with Paul Feig on movies like Bridesmaids and Spy. He did 4 movies with him. And he also shot Squid and the Whale. And he also shot an upcoming movie called The Collaboration. Have you heard about this movie?
Name sounds familiar.
It's about artists Warhol and Basquiat.
Oh.
And Andy Warhol's played by Paul Bettany.
Yes.
And Basquiat's Jeremy Pope.
Daniel Bruhl is in it too.
Yep. And it's the director's directorial debut. Kwame something.
Cool.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
Kwame Kwe Arma.
Yeah, his first movie. So the editor,
he's a playwright.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What did he do?
I don't know. Okay. I don't want to skim through it right now.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, editor Dylan. The editor Dylan Tichenor. Tishner, sure. He started his career as Geraldine Peroni's assistant director. And so she worked on a lot of Robert Altman's films.
Oh, cool.
So his first kind of big stuff that he did was being the assistant editor on a bunch of Robert Altman films. He also helped edited Brokeback Mountain for her after her passing. So she died while editing Brokeback Mountain. And so then he picked up and finished it. He edits many of Paul Thomas Anderson's films.
He's done a lot of stuff. I'm looking at it right here. A lot
of them. And he's been Oscar nominated twice, once for PTA's There Will Be Blood and for Catherine Bigelow's Zero Dark 30. Weirdly, though, this is his only movie with Wes Anderson. But it feels like this movie is like the Wes Anderson edited movie for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that's kind of interesting.
He also did Phantom Thread. He did Doubt, which we love.
Yep.
He did The Assassination of Jesse James. Yep. He did Unbreakable. He's an M. Night guy.
There you go.
Yeah, he's done a ton of stuff.
Doubt is such a good movie. I love that movie.
Doubt's the best. The Town he did.
There you go.
We're Affleck heads, especially after this weekend.
We watched Hypnotic.
Which is apparently a movie.
I was fine.
It was fine.
The music for the Royal Tenenbaums was credited to King Mark Mothersbaugh.
Yes.
Who is of Devo and 21 Jump Street fame.
And Rugrats.
He's done a million things. I went through his Wikipedia today. Like I can't
We're in our Mothersbaugh era. What can I say?
I can't even begin to tell you how many movies he did. And TV shows. And it's so funny because like you're like, oh, he does so much like big stuff, but he also just like he did all the like Nickelodeon movies too.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome.
He whips it.
Whips it good. So the soundtrack actually consists of rock songs from anywhere from like the 1960s to the 1990s.
Hey, there was like a 10-minute Hey Jude in the beginning.
Yeah.
That started off.
And I'll talk more about that whole like spanning decades in a little bit. The cast here is stacked. We've got Gene Hackman, Danny Glover, Angelica Houston, Gwyneth Paltrow, Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller, and Bill Murray, with narration by Alec Baldwin. Baldwin, he picked this for his like Criterion collection. Criterion collection. And he said that he considers this, back to Robert Altman, he considers this the most unique like movie to come out of like cinema since MASH.
Okay.
I don't know if I got that exactly right, but it's one of those things where it's like the most a very unique perspective.
Yeah.
That he hasn't seen since Robert Altman's MASH, which we watched.
Nashville.
We watched Nashville a couple of weeks ago, and Robert Altman, man, he's got a perspective.
Yeah, even Gosford Park, which was his last movie or one of his late movies.
He did Prairie Home Companion, I think, after that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, one of his later movies.
We got to watch more Altman. Everybody's got to watch more Altman.
Definitely.
If you've seen it all, rewatch it.
Yeah. Anderson had many influences when developing the film, including his own parents' divorce.
Okay. Noah Baumbach vibes.
Yes. French director Louis Malle's The Fire Within. Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons.
Oh, that's one that's like there's like all this controversy over that one, because that was the one where like Orson Welles never got control over his movies after Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And I think that was the second or third one. And according to him, it was totally butchered. Like they took a whole hour out of it Like it was like 80 something minutes. It was supposed to be like over 2 hours, and apparently the cut that it's supposed to be a classic. I haven't seen it. That is the theatrical cut. Apparently the people who have seen the extended cut say that it's like a masterpiece. So it's like one of those famous movies that is like totally like wrapped in controversy.
Is the final cut available anywhere?
Probably. I haven't really looked into it too much.
Yeah. But it's very clearly an influence, just the names themselves, right?
Yeah.
The Magnificent Ambersons, the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, I think the Magnificent Ambersons is about like a group of a rich family in like the Midwest or something. And they're like, and it's like their downfall.
That's cool. It's also inspired by J.D. Salinger's Franny and Zoe, where it's like they're precocious kids. And so that's obviously the Tenenbaums are also precocious kids. Did you know that's how Zoe Deschanel's mom like chose the spelling of her name? Really? Yeah. Which makes sense just out there just in the world. Her. Yeah. Future property sister.
Oh God. Thesis.
And he was also Wes Anderson was also inspired by E.L. Konigsberg's classic kids book From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frank Weiler. Have you ever read that?
No, I've never heard of that before.
Like the kids they stay overnight in the museum. I think it's not the Met, the Natural History Museum.
So it's Night at the Museum,
I guess.
With Ben Stiller from Royal Tenenbaums.
There you go. That's the Frank Weiler connection. So Royal Tenenbaums was shot across 250 different sets in New York City, meant to have an ambiguous time setting, which I didn't pick up on, but now makes total sense looking back on it. There are things everywhere from the 1960s to the early 2000s throughout the movie. And that makes sense with the soundtrack too.
Yeah.
Spanning those decades. I think the house is in Harlem.
Okay.
And it kind of looked a little storybookish.
Yeah.
So that's what he liked that. And yeah, if you look through the movie, it really is difficult to kind of get a finger on the actual like time it's set in.
Yeah.
And some people said, I saw one person at least said that it's very 1970s in sort of like a Midnight Cowboy way, which is a movie that we saw pretty recently. Which that was a good movie too, actually. Very sad movie.
Yes.
Very sad. It was the first
rated
X movie to win Best Picture. Yeah. And now it's not be rated X at all. So I thought that was like super interesting.
Yeah, well, I think it sort of ties in with the themes of how these people have stagnated and like, you know, throughout the movie, like Luke Wilson's still dressed like it's 1970. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
and that's something too. Not to give it away, but this movie did inspire the TV show Arrested Development.
Yeah.
And one of the things in the Royal Tenenbaums is that these characters, their childhood selves, when they're in the movie, they're wearing the same exact clothes, kind of insinuating that they're in a state of arrested development, meaning they never really broke through that precocious childhood that they had, where they had so much potential and were so, excelling in all these things, and they never were able to break past that.
Yeah.
So I think that also could contribute to that lack of a time, right? Where they're kind of stuck in the past as time kind of flies by.
Yeah.
Good stuff there.
There's a lot of those little nuggets in this movie that I think are really, really great and add a lot to the analysis.
Yes, this is definitely not hypnotic.
What do you mean? You mean they didn't just throw 45 twists in 90 minutes?
Right, exactly. No, this is definitely a movie that like you could spend a semester
You could watch this movie
class.
10 times and still pick up new things.
Exactly. The Royal Tenenbaums was released wide in December of 2001, and it was a hit critically and commercially. The movie made $71.4 million on a $21 budget. $1 million budget.
$21 budget. Wow.
I got this 20, but I also have $1.
Go pick up a couple of Arizona iced teas from the convenience store down the block.
It was Anderson's most commercially successful film until
Grand Budapest Hotel?
Yeah, in 2014. It currently holds an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, but honestly, some critics were really divided on the success of the film. Like how successful the film was.
Like artistically?
Artistically. Some people really liked it. and others really didn't.
I thought it was excellent, and this type of movie resonates hard with me.
You're just like, you're super into big family stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Huge Succession fan. It's like a similar type of a dynamic, you know?
Right. Sopranos.
Yeah.
And it also, what's the other show?
Gemstones. Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah, Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah.
It also has you might like Downton Abbey, to be honest with
Maybe.
you, because that's kind of, it's just a big family and the people that work in the place too. It also has a C- on Cinema Score.
I could see that. I would have to watch the trailer. I wonder what the trailer looked like.
This is my guess. My guess is that it got popular and more people were like, ooh, I want to see it. And they didn't know who Wes Anderson was yet. Right.
We really didn't.
It was the first big successful Wes Anderson movie. So they were just like, what?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we saw Book of Mormon.
Yes.
And there's always people that are mad when they go see the Book of Mormon on Broadway.
And after the intermission, those seats are empty. Like some seats are empty.
Some seats are empty. And it's like, oh, they just thought like, oh, it's this big popular Broadway show.
Yeah.
They don't realize
it's the South Park people.
It's the South Park guys that made it. So yeah. The Royal Tenenbaums was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Academy Awards, and Gene Hackman won Best Actor. Ooh, I almost said a bad word. Sorry. Best Actor, Musical or Comedy at the Golden Globes, but he was not nominated for the Oscar.
Interesting.
I don't know why. He was really good in this.
You can keep going.
You're gonna look up?
Yeah, I'm gonna look up who was up for the Academy Awards that year.
It has been seen as an influential film in the years since its release, popping up on best of lists left and right. I think like in a poll that Empire did for the best movies, this was like number 159 or something like
Crazy.
that.
All right, you want to hear that he won for Best Supporting Actor or Actor?
I think Actor. Best
Actor that year was Tom Wilkinson for In the Bedroom.
Yeah, great.
Which got a bunch of nominations, and
that's a great movie that no one's seen.
Yeah. Same director as Tar from last year.
Yes.
Will Smith for Ali.
Okay.
Sean Penn for I Am Sam.
That's a very 2001.
Russell Crowe for A Beautiful Mind, and then Denzel won for Training Day.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
So I mean,
all right. That's a hard.
Sean Penn at the time.
Right. Yeah. And I like that Tom Wilkinson got in there.
He would have had a shot maybe for supporting. Maybe not. It was John Voight for Ali, Ian McKellen for Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Ben Kingsley for Sexy Beast, Ethan Hawke for Training Day, and Jim Broadbent won for Iris.
I love Jim Broadbent. He's a great actor.
Slughorn in Harry Potter. Is that who he was?
He was also the dad in Bridget Jones's Diary.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was in Paddington. And
he's my king in Paddington, obviously. Spoiler for one of my questions later. So the Royal Tenenbaums also even inspired the TV show Arrested Development. And who's the creator again?
I forget his name.
The creator was like, he saw the Royal Tenenbaums. He goes, oh, well, there goes my idea. Apparently that was his idea. Like he really wanted to do that. And he was just like, I'll do it anyway. And Arrested Development is very similar to the Royal Tenenbaums.
Mitchell Hurwitz.
Yes. Just very different in tone. And Arrested Development, do you like that show?
It is one of the best written comedies of all time.
Yes.
But there is no
heart,
no connection. I don't have any connection with any of the characters, but they're hilarious.
Yeah.
Like if it's on TV, I'll watch it and I'll laugh a lot, but I'm not revisiting Arrested Development that often.
Jessica Waters is amazing.
Yeah.
But like there's
they all are. Tony Hale's great. David Cross is great. They're all great.
They're all
Portia's great.
They're all great. Yeah. Isn't Liza Minnelli in it?
Yeah, she's Lucille too. Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen the show. I think the show is extremely well written, and it's like 30 Rock in that there's like a joke every 2 seconds, and the joke is layered.
And I have the same opinion about 30 Rock. Like I don't rewatch 30. I can't rewatch 30 Rock.
Right.
Like I said, if there's an episode on TV, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to seek it out. Whereas a show like Parks and Rec, we were just watching it earlier today. I'll watch it all the time.
Right. Agreed. That's why we're married. That
is actually why. That was in our vows.
Yeah, no. Royal Tenenbaums is also partially responsible for inspiring a terrible TikTok trend where people stand in line in the middle of the shot of their phones looking seriously into the camera, and they say that that's a Wes Anderson type video. Like really, really, I think underappreciating.
Reductive.
It's very reductive. Like Wes Anderson's amazing.
But
he just is.
He does do those shots a lot.
A lot of those things. I mean, when you see those, you know exactly what director.
Like I said earlier, you know when you're watching a Wes Anderson movie.
But I do feel a little bad because it's like, that's not all he does.
And I can especially see that after watching this movie where like there's so much heart in this movie.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that.
It's so much more than that like random song that they play where it's like breakfast 8:06 a.m.
Yeah.
on my balcony. And like, oh my gosh, like stop. Okay. So yeah, Royal Tenenbaums, I gotta say.
Kind of slaps.
I kind of liked it a lot more than the first time I saw it.
There you go. Personal growth, baby.
That's right.
That's what we're here for.
Give us our summary.
Wait, can I first give you the taglines?
Yeah.
The taglines are good.
Yeah.
Well, one of them's really good. The first one is, "You are invited to a remarkable family gathering." Oh, that's fine.
That fits.
The one I really like is, "Family isn't a word, it's a sentence." That's a great tagline.
Again, like I said, pay them.
Yes.
Pay the tagline writers more.
I don't know if they're part of the strikes right now, but we need to pay
them.
Pay the tagline writers and the screenwriters what they're worth, please.
Yep.
All right. There's so much color in this movie, not like physical color, but like in the quirkiness and the narrative and all this stuff. I'm gonna miss all that with this plot summary, just to remind you guys what is going on in this movie. All right. Royal Tenenbaum, who I didn't know was a character before I watched this movie.
That is his name. His name is Royal Tenenbaum.
Royal Tenenbaum, played by Gene Hackman, is separating from his wife Ethelyn, played by Angelica Houston, and he's in the course of explaining this to his 3 children, each of whom was very successful at a young age. Chaz is a young businessman from whom Royal steals money. The adopted Margot is a successful playwright, and Richie is a tennis prodigy and artist. Richie's best friend, Eli Cash, is also their neighbor. I don't think they ever just called him Eli. I feel like it was Eli Cash the whole movie.
I love that.
Royal shows favoritism towards Richie specifically. And then we get the sort of background, and then we jump forward 2 decades later. Royal is kicked out of a hotel, and each of the children is in a depressive slump. Chaz, now played by Ben Stiller, is extremely overprotective of his sons, Ari and Uzi, after his wife Rachel died in a plane crash. Margot, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, is now married to an older neurologist named Raleigh St. Clair, played by Bill Murray, who, like, that archetype is so Tobias Funke, like, in Arrested Development. Obviously played much differently. Richie, played by Luke Wilson, having had a breakdown during his last pro tennis match, traveled the world and wrote to Eli that he was in love with Margot, his adopted sister, to be clear. When Ethelyn's
Which originally was not the case, and he changed it to make them adopted.
That's a good call.
That's probably a good idea.
When Ethelyn's accountant, Henry Sherman, played by Danny Glover, proposes to her, Royal claims to have stomach cancer to win back his family.
Good move.
While living with them, Royal takes his grandsons on an adventure involving shoplifting, and Chaz berates him when he finds out.
It was a cute scene, though.
It was.
I don't shoplift, but it was a very cute scene.
Eli, now played by Owen Wilson, with whom Margot has been having an affair, tells her that Richie loves her. Meanwhile, Henry discovers that Royal is faking his illness, and Royal is forced to move out. Richie and Raleigh discover through a private investigator that Margot has a history of smoking and a previous marriage that no one knew about. There's like 10 things that go wrong, and Raleigh is like, she smokes.
Yeah.
That's like the one thing that he points out. As a result, Richie shaves his long hair and beard and attempts suicide, but Raleigh finds him and he's rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, Raleigh confronts Margot and leaves, and Richie escapes and meets with Margot to confess his love, and they kiss. Royal has a change of heart, and he arranges for a divorce, and right before Ethelyn and Henry's wedding, Eli, on drugs, crashes his car into the side of the house, nearly killing Ari and Uzi and killing the family dog, Buckley. Enraged at Eli, Chaz chases him through the house and wrestles him to the ground, but they both agree that they need help, Chaz sort of getting over his wife, and Eli with his variety of problems, including his drug problem.
And they said, let's star in Zoolander together.
We gotta, yes. In another world, we will be frenemies.
And then we'll be in Night at the Museum together.
Yes. Meet the Parents as well.
I mean, let's just They came from
Meet the Parents into this.
Let's just do a whole bunch of films together.
Chaz thanks Royal for saving his sons and for buying them a Dalmatian from the responding firemen, which is a pretty funny scene. Ethelyn and Henry are married in a judge's chambers. Later, Margot releases a play inspired by her family. Eli checks himself into rehab in North Dakota, and Richie teaches a junior tennis program. Chaz becomes less overprotective of his children. Royal seems to be on better terms with his family until he has a heart attack at 68, I think he was, and Chaz is with him in the ambulance as he dies. The family attends his funeral. The epitaph reads that he, quote, died tragically rescuing his family from the wreckage of a destroyed sinking battleship. And that's the end of the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yep.
Impossible to capture the color in that movie in a plot summary.
That was a really succinct plot summary.
I took out a whole lot. I was like, what is important here? What is not important?
But I actually think you covered most of it. Yeah. But you're right. Like there's
so much stuff going on in between there that that sort of adds to the depth. And I feel like we can talk about those things as we go.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. So let's start with my New Jersey connection.
This is a good one, I heard.
It's terrible. Get connected for free. Free. The New Jersey connection. So, okay. I made a big mistake when I said every movie has so many New Jersey connections. Like, it's impossible to tell you the reach that New Jerseyans have.
Point Break.
Point Break, I'm still in the process of.
The Meg, I think we had trouble with.
And then like 12 Angry Men. There were like 7 New Jersey connections. So, okay. 21 Jump Street was really hard. It was like Ellie Kemper went to Princeton. This one's
better than this one, probably.
This one is so bad. So the cast is not huge for this movie.
Right.
The Wikipedia page does not have many people involved in this movie.
Right.
So a lot of people are from Texas.
That's where Wes Anderson's originally from, right?
That's right. And a lot of people...
He does not feel like a Texas boy.
I know, at all. He's lived in Paris since like 2005.
He feels much more like a Paris guy.
And he lived in New York before then. His whole adult life he lived in New York.
New York makes sense.
And there's always people from Philly. And like, we're so close to Philly, but it's still not New Jersey. All right, so here it is. Remember how I said this movie was inspired in part by Louis Malle? Right? French movie guy. Well, he once made a movie called Atlantic City.
There you go. New Jersey, baby. You can't have the film industry without New Jersey.
1980s Atlantic City. He directed that.
Great. All right. Well, that's the New Jersey connection.
And you got connected for free.
You didn't even have to pay for it.
My New Jersey connection. So that... My first question is, thoughts on Wes Anderson movies overall?
It's hard for me to say. So like I mentioned, I've seen this one now. I've seen The Grand Budapest Hotel twice, and I've seen Moonrise Kingdom with mixed results.
Yeah.
I loved this one, especially the more that I think about it. Grand Budapest Hotel, I've seen twice and I've liked twice, but I don't really remember a single thing about it other than Lobby Boy.
What about Saoirse Ronan?
I don't remember her.
And she makes the things, and then she's got the scar.
Mm.
And then there's the scene where what's his name is like skiing.
I don't remember. I've seen it twice. I don't know why I can't. The movie doesn't stick with me, but I know I really enjoyed it both times that I watched it.
Yeah.
And Moonrise Kingdom, I
did not like
start to finish. It like got off on the wrong foot, and then I just didn't like it at all. So, it's sort of what I said before. I wouldn't say I love Wes Anderson movies. I wouldn't say I hate Wes Anderson movies. I'm kind of like, he has so many ardent defenders that I want to see more to sort of get the full picture, you know?
Well, that leads me to my next part of the question. Are there any that you want to see that you haven't caught yet specifically? You can go to his page if you want and look them up.
Well, I'm going to parlay this into my question for you, which was, does this sort of reopen the door for more Wes Anderson movies? Because I know that you haven't been a huge fan.
You know, I think it does. I have found in my old age, I have become much more open-minded towards revisiting things and opening my opinion up and saying, listen, as a silly 19-year-old, maybe I saw something and didn't like it, but maybe as a 30-something-year-old, I'm going to revisit it and be like, wow, I actually really appreciated it this time. Or the opposite happens occasionally. Black Swan.
Yeah. Didn't love that on rewatch.
No. So I'm totally willing to rewatch some Wes Anderson movies that I've seen. I haven't seen many of them. I've only also seen Rushmore alongside of the ones that you've seen. But I watched that in college or in high school because I really liked the band Rooney.
Yes.
And Robert Schwartzman, who was in The Princess Diaries, his brother, Jason Schwartzman, who
I Think You Should Leave fame.
Yeah. Who is in a lot of Wes Anderson movies.
Oh, yeah. Especially his earlier stuff.
Yeah. He also was the drummer in the band Phantom Planet, who did the theme song for the OC, which I also really liked.
Got it.
So I was like, I need to watch Rushmore because he's the lead in that. And I liked it, but what do I remember from that?
Right.
Nothing. I think there's like a school dance scene at the end.
Yeah.
Like that's all I remember. So I'm totally willing to kind of reopen my Wes Anderson door and watch more of his movies for sure.
I've got 3 for you that I would want to see.
My number one that I do want to see is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Me too.
Yeah.
On top of that, I really want to see Bottle Rocket.
His first movie.
And I really want to see The French Dispatch. If I had to pick 3.
Okay. French Dispatch is relatively new.
From 2021.
Yes.
Schwartzman's in that one. Or he came up with this. He was part of coming up with the story.
I think he was the lead in Darjeeling Limited too.
It has an absolutely insane cast. Like just everybody you could think of. Like Timothée Chalamet, Jeffrey Wright. This is all the way down the list too. Willem Dafoe, Edward Norton, Saoirse Ronan. A lot of people he's worked with before. Angelica Houston's in it. Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Henry Winkler, Frances McDormand. It goes on. The list goes on. Fisher Stevens from Succession.
Is Hong Chow in it? Or is she in the new one?
Hong Chow is in Asteroid City.
Yeah.
And then he has another one coming out. The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar comes out this year as well.
Is that a short?
No, it's a Netflix movie.
I thought it was a Roald Dahl short.
I don't know if it's a short. Maybe it's a short story that it's based off of.
Maybe. I don't know why I thought the movie was 37 minutes
I mean, maybe
long.
it is. You might be right, but it doesn't say that on Wikipedia.
I think he's adapting.
I got there. Yes. It is supposed to be a short.
That's why I make the big bucks.
It's coming out later this month.
He's, I think, adapting a few Roald Dahl stories, and I can't think of someone better.
The only other person is like Tim Burton.
Tim Burton.
Who I think that...
And he has done stuff like... he was involved in James and the Giant Peach, too. Yeah. I don't know if he directed it.
I think we talked about that back in the day.
I think he was involved.
Yeah. But I've said this in the past. I feel like Wes Anderson is like an updated version of Tim Burton without the... Like, Tim Burton has a kind of griminess to some of his movies that Wes Anderson doesn't have, but I feel like there's something about their two styles that sticks out to me as being sort of kinship. There's some sort of kinship between Tim Burton and Wes Anderson movies.
Something that's really interesting for me is that my favorite, which I've come to appreciate Tim Burton movies a lot more. Again, as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized it's not all Edward Scissorhands and
which I haven't seen.
Corpse Bride. Yeah. You know, like it goes beyond that. And I thought he did Nightmare Before Christmas, which he didn't direct, but he again was involved with. Like that's not just him, right? Like of course we know that now. But something that's interesting to me is that my favorite Tim Burton movie and my favorite Wes Anderson movie both deal with family.
Big Fish?
Yeah. They seem to be very personal.
Yeah.
And I like when you get the heart mixed with their perspectives and their styles.
Well, and even if you think about Beetlejuice, it's got the zaniness to it, but at heart it's about making connections with your family or your chosen family.
I do love Beetlejuice. That is a good movie. Big Fish, though. It was amazing.
Batman's great, too.
Batman is great.
86 or what, 89?
Let's see. What else do I got here? A little bit more with Wes Anderson movies overall. What's your favorite thing about the Wes Anderson movies that you've seen, and what's your least favorite thing?
My least favorite thing is that it seems like animals are always dying.
Yes, that's me too. Why does the dog always die?
I will talk about that later on. I actually understand the purpose of it, I think, in this movie. But overall, I'm just not a huge fan of that. Despite the fact that he has a lot of focus on animals and their significance. Just, we don't need it. I don't need that. What I do like, I like the things that people sort of hate about them. Like, that they're sort of, like, they're just different. They're not like any other types of movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whether or not I actually like watching them, I like that something exists that is as creative as his style of writing and directing and the cinematography and editing and all that. Like, he's a singular director. And again, whether or not I love all his movies, that's a different story. But I love that there's a person with this voice, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I agree with...
Another thing I don't like, he's not very good at casting non-white people.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't have very many movies with prominent non-white characters.
Yes, you're correct on that. Right. So we agree on the dislikes there, things that we think could be improved. For example, not killing animals in your movies as much. My favorite thing about his movies is that every little tiny thing is there with purpose.
Yeah.
So if the character has a specific outfit, every little detail on that outfit was done for a reason. Every book that is in the movie, in the bookcase, is probably picked there for a specific reason.
Like in this movie, a lot of the background, like a lot of the wall decor is just like everything is everywhere and there's like so much stuff. But if you look at what's actually on there, like for example, Margot has a lot of zebras on there, and I'm going to talk about like animal symbolism later, but there's like zebras that are on the wall, and you're like, and she was a zebra in her play when she was a kid. So like there's little significant pieces of character, if not plot, then character, everywhere. In the background, in the foreground, in the words, in the dynamics. Like it's just, he knows how to create a world.
Yeah. And I just appreciate when everything is thought through.
Yeah.
It's just very cool. Yeah. Good job. So let's see. I have 2 more questions for you. Besides Gene Hackman, who we know, Royal was amazing in this. Yeah. He was so good. I love Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Who gave 93? He's 93 years old.
Still kicking.
Still kicking. Who gave the best performance in this movie? And I have 2.
I think I'm going to say Gwyneth Paltrow.
I know. I'm mad about it.
I don't like saying it.
I know.
But she's great. She just inhabits that character really well.
Yep. She's my one.
Yeah.
And then my second is Danny Glover.
I was going to say him too.
He adds that bit of heart.
Yeah.
That there is heart in the movie.
Yeah.
But he is you could tell he's there with the best intentions. He loves Angelica Houston and he wants to be with her, and he's willing to deal with all of this.
Yeah.
The whole family, all the Tenenbaums, in order to live his life with his partner.
Well, I think that's the key too. You just hit on it exactly. Like the Tenenbaums are each stuck in their own neurosis. They're all so like they can't get out of their own way. Everything is just weighing on them. They're very heavy family. And he is our look at them from the outside to be like, yes, these people are insane and probably detrimental to themselves and to each other. This includes Eli, who just wants to be a Tenenbaum.
Right.
All of these people are self-destructive and self-inhibiting and inhibiting each other. But Danny Glover still loves Ethelyn. What's his name? Henry. Still loves Ethelyn anyway. And he accepts her children, and he even accepts her ex-husband or separated husband,
who is very rude and racist,
racist to him.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that character he's a saint. Honestly, he's great.
What's interesting to me,
it's sort of an anti-typecast with Danny Glover too, where he's always like, I feel like especially in his later roles, he's like, I'm too old for this. That's what I always think of.
Yeah.
And like he was like the old grizzled cop in Saw a couple years after this. Like he's sort of this is him being, you see he explodes a little bit at Royal when he gets goaded into it, but for the most part he's very chill and he's a very nice guy, and it's sort of not what I would have expected from Danny Glover.
Yeah, that's really good. And like I said, Gene Hackman is just the best in this. And something that's really interesting is Royal as a character, he doesn't seem to think he's a Tenenbaum.
Yeah.
I think Eli or Owen Wilson, when he says, I've always wished I was a Tenenbaum, I think Royal says me too.
Yeah.
Something like that in there. And it is interesting when you kind of look at it, like he acts like someone who feels like he has to prove himself, or acts out because he doesn't feel like he's as good as everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it from that way, it explains a lot of what Royal does.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. My last question is a little bit more on the outside here because we're getting into actual questions about the movie and talking about the movie itself. Wow. This is not that. So Margot and Richie Tenenbaum are a popular couple's costume for Halloween. It's a little strange.
Very strange, yes.
But, you know, I could see it for your kind of cool indie alternative millennials.
Yep.
Do you like that or no?
No.
No.
Very much don't like that.
What movie-based Halloween couples costumes would you like? What do you want to dress as for Halloween?
That's a tough one. Do you have any off the top of your head?
I do. Mine is you will dress as Paddington.
Okay.
And I'll dress as a jar of marmalade.
Okay.
Orange marmalade.
Yeah. Not technically a character, but we'll go with it.
Yeah. That was mine. Also, you can be Tobin Heath and I'll be like the Saw.
Tobin Bell. Tobin Heath's the women's national player.
That would make it really weird.
Yeah.
You're Tobin Bell. You're the old guy.
John Kramer.
And I'm the
Billy the puppet or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second Saw reference this episode.
We're like super into Saw.
Also, in both of these, you picked something that was inanimate. No matter what.
And why am I the inanimate thing both times?
You picked it.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have any.
You are Nicolas Cage and I'm Cher in Moonstruck.
Okay.
Snap out of it.
Is that a good couple?
I mean, kinda. How about we're the parents from My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Okay.
You just have a bottle of Windex.
I can do that.
And then I have the bunt cake.
Yes. Lainey Kazan, the goat.
I'm gonna be Lainey Kazan, obviously. Yeah. So those are mine probably, or we can both dress as Packers from Pitch Perfect 2.
Oh yeah,
we just have to learn how to harmonize.
I think we could do it. We have good enough voices that I think we could make it work.
Okay, so those are my ideas.
We could be Mozart and Salieri from Amadeus.
That's a really good one.
I would be Salieri for sure.
Yeah, I'll be Mozart.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I see like all of mine are just like frenemies. Like the guys from Point Break.
That's cool.
I don't know if I have like a couple. What couples do I like in movies?
How about you're Greg and I'm Tanya from White Lotus?
Okay.
It's not
a great relationship.
It's also not a movie, but then
yeah, no, that's fair.
Or how about we
could do Tony and Carmela.
I would love to be Carmela. Or we could be Christopher and Adriana.
I think I'd rather be Tony and Carmela.
Okay. I'll wear the fur.
Yeah.
Faux fur.
Yeah.
With the nails. That'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if you don't want to be Greg and Tanya, we can be Tanya and you could be Valentina. So then I'll say, who do I look like? I'm Monica Vitti. And you go, Peppa Pig.
Yes.
All right, I think we've got some ideas for
absolutely.
Next month.
We're gonna have to start getting the ball rolling here, especially if we're gonna do the faux fur.
Yeah, definitely.
That's all your questions?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, that's a good way to end one. Okay. Do you like ensembles like this?
Depends.
Yeah.
Like I hated Rat Race when I saw it back in the day.
I loved Rat Race. I'm sure it doesn't age well, but I loved it. Same year, I think.
Maybe.
I think it was 2001.
It depends. I think that if it's done super purposefully, like yeah. But like if it's a Robert Altman movie, yeah, of course I love an ensemble.
Yeah.
If it's Ocean's 12,
the problem I think with ensembles is that it takes a great writer to make you care about the characters, because you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, that's George Clooney. Oh my God, that's whoever, and then you're looking at them as George Clooney or as Brad Pitt or whatever. And without doing anything more to distinguish them as a character, like, as you can watch this and be like, oh, it's Ben Stiller. But they do so much in this movie to establish Chaz as a character that it's Chaz. It's not Ben Stiller.
Well, and I think that's why I like ensembles in TV shows.
Yeah.
Easily.
There's enough time.
Exactly. The fact that, and a Robert Altman movie is 8 hours long.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Wes Anderson was able to do this in less than 2 hours.
Right. And it also makes me curious about The French Dispatch and Asteroid City, because those I think have especially huge casts, and everyone's famous because he's Wes Anderson now,
right.
you know? And I'm a little worried that those movies everything sort of dilutes itself when there's so many stars.
Well, my dad planned
yes.
a date for my mom and him to go to Princeton. They went to the movies, to the local indie theater there. Then they went out to dinner, and there were 2 movies playing. One of them was like the creation of
the Blackberry.
Movie? Yeah. And then the latest Wes Anderson movie, Asteroid City. So they went, and my dad just texts, weird movie.
Yeah.
He really liked Grand Budapest Hotel. I think that he
why.
just keeps giving them chances.
Yeah.
And Royal Tenenbaums, I think he would like. But
my thing with Asteroid City is I've only seen the trailer. I think it's hideous looking. It's just sandy. And it's supposed to be.
And y'all know I hate sand.
Yeah, but it's like it's seemingly a uncharacteristic lack of color in that movie as compared to other Wes Anderson movies. But I'll have to watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'll probably watch it eventually.
Eventually. Okay. Speaking of which, what do you think is the best Wes Anderson cast? I'm not saying like best characters, whatever, because we haven't seen all of them, but just names on paper.
So this one is really good.
This one is great
because everybody's a hit. Like,
yeah,
everybody's a star.
But
they even got the star from Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, it's true.
Who was Bill Murray's patient.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is really, really good, and the star power is so strong. Like, wow. Fantastic Mr. Fox, though, has Meryl Streep and George Clooney as a married couple in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're foxes. Like, how can you beat that?
Well,
like, sorry, I don't want to be mean, but like when you're doing Darjeeling Limited and like 2 of your main people are like Luke Wilson and Jason Schwartzman,
yeah,
I'm not going to pick that one.
Right.
I think they're a really strong addition to an ensemble, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Bill Murray's the lead in this aquatic whatever.
The Life Aquatic, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones I wrote because it's got Cate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Jeff Goldblum, and Michael Gambon in it as well. In addition to Owen Wilson, Anjelica Huston, and some of his other normal collaborators.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like a Dafoe. I like a Cate Blanchett.
Well, Dafoe was in Grand Budapest Hotel also with Ray Fine and who's nuts.
He's great in that.
Tilda Swinton, Saoirse Ronan you mentioned, Edward Norton. So there's like a million people. And then Asteroid City, yeah, Jason Schwartzman I think is listed first, but there's also Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Bryan Cranston. There's a ton of people.
I think it's just whatever
everyone in
you
Hollywood
want.
has been in a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah,
like.
And a lot of people have been in a lot of Wes Anderson movies. Yeah. So I don't know.
Timothée Chalamet was in French Dispatch, like I said.
Yeah.
Like what?
We love Timmy.
Yeah, I'm a Timmy fan.
I like Timmy.
I don't dislike Timmy.
No, I like him too. He's in the tabloids recently, though.
He is.
Yeah.
I saw a weird meme about it. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, so my only other question was asked to us from our friends at Seeing Faces in Movies on Instagram. They do it's an interesting podcast. They do like a director or a cinematographer each month, and they do 4 of their movies, like one a week. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. So they asked us, who is your favorite Tenenbaum? Which is, I mean...
We can interpret that in so many ways.
I'm going to go with my favorite, the character I think is the best developed. And again, I think I'm going to go with Margot.
Yeah.
I think that Margot she's so a product of an outsider who just wants to be a part of something so much, and when she's rejected, she just rebels, and that's her entire life. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's perfectly done.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Royal because I think that all he wants too is the attention and the appreciation of his family and the acceptance of his family, and he rebels, but in a very different way. So instead of doing everything that Margot does, which she does all kinds of crazy stuff, he becomes like a pathological liar. He Tries to win over the affections of his grandkids by helping them shoplift.
And he kind of does.
And he does. And they love him, which he's a fun grandpa. He does all these crazy different things to try to get that acceptance of his family, even trying to get his wife back, even though he doesn't really want his wife back. And it just shows you really where his motivations are and kind of that lack of having that appreciation and that acceptance his whole life, even with the family that he created.
But did he lie about smoking cigarettes his whole life? His whole life.
Since she was 12. She started when she was 12.
Yeah. That's so funny to me because, like, who cares? Like, after a certain amount of time, it's just her own thing with herself that is her raging against the machine, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes people, I think, really like to be enigmas.
Yeah.
And they like to be mysterious. Mm-hmm. I have never had that inclination myself. So I've asked you like a million times over the years, like, am I mysterious? No. Do I surprise you? No, apparently I don't. Have I ever had a secret in my life? No.
I wouldn't know because it would be a secret.
I really haven't. I really have not. So I find Margot very intriguing in that way too. Like, she's willing to keep a secret, like a really big one, because she smokes like hardcore.
A lot. How do they not smell it?
Yeah.
But that's like kind of the joke.
Yeah, of course. And the fact that like it's also connected to they don't care about her as much, you know?
No one's paying any attention
because no one's paying attention, right? Not that they don't care, but yeah, they're not paying attention to her. So Margot is definitely second on my list.
Yeah. And I love Royal. As a character, he's a racist, but he's a good character.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. That's all I've got for questions. So what I'll do next is I'll save my deep dive for the end. We'll do Roger Ebert. Do you see what he gave it?
3.5.
3.5 out of 4.
My king.
Yeah, I actually really loved his review for this movie.
Remember when he liked The Notebook?
Oh, man. Let's not talk about it. He wrote, trying to understand the way this flywheel comedy tugs at the heartstrings, I reflected that eccentricity often masks deep loneliness. All the Tenenbaums are islands entire of themselves. Consider that Margot has been a secret smoker since she was 12. Why bother? Nobody else in the family cares, and when they discover her deception, they hardly notice. Her secrecy was part of her own strategy to stand outside the family to have something that was her own. One of the pleasures of the movie is the way it keeps us a little uncertain about how we should be reacting. It's like a guy who seems to be putting you on and then suddenly reveals himself as sincere, so you're stranded out there with an inappropriate smirk. You can see this quality on screen in a lot of Owen Wilson's roles, in the half-kidding, half-serious way he finds out just how far he can push people. The movie's strategy of doubling back on its own emotions works mostly through the dialogue. Consider a sort of brilliant dinner table conversation where Royal tells the family he has cancer. They clearly don't believe him or care. He says he wants to get to know them before he dies. The bitter Chaz says he's not interested in that, and Royal pulls out all the stops by suggesting they visit their grandmother. Now watch how it works. Chaz and Richie haven't seen her since they were 6. Margot says piteously that she has never met her. Royal responds not with sympathy, but with a slap at her adopted status. She wasn't your real grandmother. See how this appeal turns on a dime into a cruel put-down? And it's like, that's crazy. And so he finishes by saying, the Royal Tenenbaums is at heart profoundly silly and loving. It stands in amazement at the Tenenbaums and their extended family unveil one strategy after another to get attention, carve out space, and find love. It doesn't mock their efforts, dysfunctional as they are, because it understands them and sympathizes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I liked how he sort of went into the actual screenplay of it, like part of it too. It is sort of just, the whole movie's disorienting, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like you can never quite pin people down really until the final act, when everything kind of sort of heals a little bit.
Well, and isn't that life? Right?
Yeah, honestly. Okay. Top 5 trivia. I had one. The one that I didn't write down was that Wes Anderson told Gene Hackman that this was going to be fun. And Gene Hackman said he was sort of getting ready to retire, and he just wanted to do a few fun roles. He wanted to work with Wes Anderson, and he hated it. He hated the filming of this movie so much, and he was like very mean to Wes Anderson and Bill Murray and Angelica Houston, and Bill Murray had to keep him in check the whole time they were filming. And then Wes Anderson said in an interview later on, he was like, "I'm just really sad that I didn't get to make this fun for Gene Hackman." So it clearly this role is a lot deeper than than he had anticipated when he signed on for the movie.
That's why he had to do Welcome to Mooseport.
Yeah, I mean, working with Ray Romano, that would cheer anybody up. All right, my top 5 trivia.
That's why Phil is so happy.
Phil Rosenthal.
Somebody feed him.
Okay. So in the movie, in the very beginning, Royal shoots Chaz with a BB, right? Mm-hmm. And later on, they show the BB in his hand.
Yeah, so gross.
The hand that is seen with the BB lodged in between its knuckles is not Ben Stiller's, but it's Andrew Wilson's, brother of Owen and Luke. When they were children, Owen fired a BB gun at his hand, and it got stuck, and it's been there ever since.
There you go. Well, Owen Wilson co-wrote the movie.
We know where he got that from. The original Hawk used to play Mordecai, who was Luke Wilson's bird that flies away, was kidnapped during shooting and held for ransom.
Yeah, by a New Jersey resident. Oh my God,
that's the New Jersey connection. Oh my God. That's it.
Took a while.
New Jersey guy stole the Hawk.
Mordecai.
Production couldn't wait for him to be returned. The bird that appears later in the movie has more white feathers, and they make a note of it. They even mention the fact that it has more white feathers because it's a different bird.
There you go.
Yeah. New Jersey connection for free. Throughout the movie, everyone wears the same 1970s era clothing. Richie wears a Fila tennis shirt and headband that Bjorn Borg made famous around 1976. Wes Anderson did this intentionally, so the Tenenbaums would appear trapped in their heyday while time moves on. Much of the setting, including gypsy cabs and Green Line buses, fits that theme.
There you go. That's what we talked about earlier.
Yep. Ben Stiller asked co-writer and director Wes Anderson why his character and his sons wore red tracksuits. Anderson replied that because Chaz was so obsessed with safety after the death of his wife, red would make everyone easier to see in case of an emergency. But Anderson later admitted on the DVD commentary that he had no real reason behind the costumes. He just always imagined those characters in red tracksuits.
There you go.
And finally, Danny Glover, Luke Wilson, and Owen Wilson all turned down parts in Ocean's 11 to appear in this film.
Good for them.
And my one casting was the one person who turned down the role of Royal. Did you see who it was?
I know Gene Wilder was considered.
It was Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
He turned it down because he was retired.
Yeah.
He said no thanks.
He would have been good too.
Yeah, he would have. So that's my trivia. And then I just have my last little sort of deep dive segment, which, as I have alluded to, is about the animal symbolism.
And the deep dives get us more views on Instagram.
Yes, so we're going to keep doing them. That guy from Dodgeball liked our post the other day.
He liked 2
Dwight.
posts.
He liked 2?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good for us.
Yeah.
All right. I kind of love the absurd way that Anderson sort of structures the reactions to Royal's failure as a father and just their past trauma in general. With each member of the core family, Anderson assigns an animal symbol or something adjacent to that, which sort of corresponds to each person's personality. So first, Chaz carries 2 main wounds that we see in this movie. He has Royal's neglect from when he was a child, and he has the death of his wife, Rachel. As a response, Chaz has created clones of himself to keep close, Ari and Uzi, both of whom wear the same red tracksuit and have the same hair, in part hoping to avoid passing on the neglect he felt from his father. But the opposite extreme yields the same result. The kids are as emotionally and creatively stifled as Chaz was, if not more so. He's symbolized by the black and white mice, which earlier in the movie, when he was a kid, he basically bred these Dalmatian mice who had who were white with black spots or whatever. And to me, that was he's had the color sucked out of him by his dad, mm-hmm. So he's black and white.
Well, something else interesting about him, too, you mentioned the wounds.
Yeah.
Right? He also has that physical wound of the BB between his knuckles.
Which symbolizes...
and he's never going to forget that.
Yes. So, when the family dog Buckley dies at the end when Eli hits it with a car, Buckley's sort of the last vestige of the memory of his wife besides the kids. He's that last connection to that. And so he's able to sort of accept the Dalmatian from his dad and sort of start to move on and heal. Mm-hmm. And this allows them to kind of settle into a more complicated adult father-son relationship. And I'm sure you don't see it, but it feels like he was loosening up on his kids after that too. Mm-hmm. It feels like that moment, while again, we don't like when dogs get killed in movies, seems like a thing that is sort of ripping the Band-Aid off almost and just being it's time to move on, mm-hmm. you know? And you see that Chaz and Royal's relationship has improved by the end simply by the fact that who's the one in the ambulance with Royal when he dies? It's Chaz. And Chaz is the one who throughout the movie has been the most resistant to reconciling with him throughout. When he says he has cancer, Chaz is basically I don't care. Mm-hmm. But of course he does care, but he's putting on that front.
Right.
Margot, Also, I think I didn't write it here, but I think that obviously the Dalmatian is kind of like a more tangible black and white image from, sort of growing up from the mice, so that I think that the mice and the Dalmatian symbolize Chaz and his kids.
Not to mention, Dalmatians are used with fire departments, and fire departments help when there's dangerous situations.
Yeah. And they wear red. Margot's animal is the zebra, as I alluded to earlier. There are zebras everywhere. She casts herself when she's like 9 years old as a zebra in one of her plays. She has sort of zebra wallpaper all around when she's an adult. This is another black and white, wilder version of the mice that represent Chaz. In contrast to Chaz, who sort of shrinks, Royal's neglect turned Margot into this type of rebel to the point where no one knew she smoked cigarettes for most of her life. Because her abilities have been so stifled, though, she grows up to marry a successful man who represents a surrogate father and who she does not love. Like, there's no real connection between the two of them. She continues to rebel and resist against him as well, to the point of driving him away in the form of like affairs and all that. The zebras themselves appear as a form of rebellion as well. Shortly after watching her play when she was younger, Royal made fun of it, calling it just a bunch of kids in little animal costumes, and that really kind of cut her deep. She took that comment to heart, integrating zebras into her aesthetic as a way to undercut Royal's denigration. Richie, of course, is represented by his bird, Mordecai. As a child, Richie is Royal's favorite, but when we meet adult Richie, he's doing his best to put a distance between himself, pressure from Royal, and his secret love for Margot. After his breakdown on the tennis court, he's out on a cruise, he's traveling the world. This mirrors when he sets Mordecai free. When does Mordecai come back? After Richie shaves his head, freeing himself from sort of Royal's expectations, society's expectations, and after he comes to terms with and expresses his love for Margot, that's when Mordecai comes home. It was only then that both he and Mordecai were ready to sort of move on and start anew. Royal also has an animal counterpart, the boar's head that hangs on the wall. Ethelyn first has it removed when Royal leaves, and then it's put back on the wall when he returns. That one's a little bit more on the nose. Royal's pretty much a pig who thinks he's more important than he actually is, like he's up framed on the wall. Two of the main group don't have clear animal representations, but sort of something adjacent. Ethelyn's job is that she's an anthropologist. April's making weird noises. Ethelyn's a bit more detached from the human zoo that is the Tenenbaum family. The main issues don't tend to stem from her actions, but she is there as an observer and a wrangler when things go awry, like when she kicks Royal out for good. Eli Cash, the friend and neighbor who always wanted to be a part of the Tenenbaums, has crafted his adult persona into not an animal but a cowboy seeking to wrangle and harness the essence of the Tenenbaums. In doing so, he has become the hollow inverse of their childhood successes. He's the commercially successful but critically panned author of a bunch of Western novels, and they called him the James Joyce of the West. Ironically, as a result of his efforts, he's more successful than any of the Tenenbaums as an adult, but there's no satisfaction or fulfillment here. While he has a secret relationship with Margot for a while, he's never able to truly tame her zebra nature, and he hits rock bottom in his addiction. Either fittingly or ironically, he ends up out west, like all of his novels, in North Dakota in rehab.
Did you write that?
I wrote most of it.
That's very good.
I had sort of an inkling of some of these ideas as I was watching, and I sort of poked around, and I sort of aggregated from some stuff that I saw online. But yeah, no, it was mostly me.
Good job, Tom.
Yeah, so that's the analysis of the animal symbolism in the Royal Tenenbaums. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's all I've got. I don't have any like individual notes.
Gorge.
All right, so does the Royal Tenenbaums make baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This is one that I would like to. I mean, there's some content in here, but like, yeah, when he's mature enough to sort of understand situations like this, I would say sure. I find it. I haven't watched the trailer, but I feel like the trailer was probably setting it up as like a quirky comedy.
Yeah, and it's not. It's not.
He sort of brought the hammer.
It is funny.
It is. There's a lot of funny parts in this movie.
But it's a comedy drama.
For sure. And again, I don't think that the world really knew what Wes Anderson was at this point yet.
Right.
Maybe he didn't even know. Who knows? Do you have any takeaways?
Yes. So for my child, I would say this. If you feel like you are lonely, separated, you don't really know your place in the world or where you belong in it, just know that that's how most people feel or have felt at one time. And it's okay to have to search to find your place in the world and within your family.
And it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say, you know, to your parents or sibling or whoever it ends up being, like, hey, I'm not okay. Beautiful. And that's okay.
And it's okay.
Yep. We're just not going to be, hopefully there's no royals in this house.
Oh my gosh, no.
All right. So that is the Royal Tenenbaums. I'm very glad we watched this one. So thank you guys for voting and for picking it. We always love when people give some input. And yeah, I thought this was a great movie.
Me too. So
next week, we are going to go back a few years from 2001 to 1996's Matilda.
Woo!
Directed by Danny DeVito, starring Mara Wilson, Danny DeVito, Rhea Perlman, and others.
Mm-hmm. Have you read this book?
I've not read the book, but I've seen the movie.
The book's great. The movie's a little different.
I would imagine.
And then the play, the musical, which has just become a musical movie, is more like the original book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like this is probably darker than the book. No, it's Roald Dahl, so maybe not.
No. Yeah. It's just different.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so next week is going to be Matilda. So yeah, but like Erin mentioned, we've had a lot of views on some of our recent clips. So if you're new, welcome. And, you know, we hope you stick around and, you know, rate, review, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. Yeah, so this was Royal Tenenbaums, and we'll be back next week, next Tuesday for Matilda.
Goodbye.
See you later.